as well. Hi, everyone. Hi, Larry. Hi, Lillian. Hi, Marlies. Oh, hey, Joe. Good to see you. I didn't recognize you without the mask. Welcome. Shabbat Shalom. Now we're ready.
There's Raphael Marcus right there. Shabbat Shalom, everyone. We're going to start Mincha. Page 214, the Lev Shalem. We'll start Mincha. Ashrei Ashrei Beitecha Ojelu Chasel Hashem Shekachalo Hashem Shana Elohav Tila Levidir Michal. Tilat Adonai Daber Pi Vivrako Basar Shem Korcho Leolam Ve'ed V'nachnu Varech Yam Yataver Olam Hallelujah V'al Goel Hashav Efesh V'Yakov Numan Vanizot B'Tirtam Amar Anai Ruch Asher Lecha V'Ata Kadosh Yoshev Tilo Yisrael V'Karzel Zev Yamar Kadosh 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 Adonai Tzvah Mechlaretz Kevodo Mekablin Deim V'Deim V'Yamrin Kadosh B'Shmei Roma Vatisa any ruach vashmacharei kol rash gadol baruch Adonai mimkomo Adonai imloch le'olam v'ed. Adonai tzvani manim yiskablanu ve'kosam na'aseh shadam v'derech pachanai shemach yam koreinu v'achol. V'yivtechu v'chayidei shemecha ki lo azavta dorshecha Adonai Adonai chafetz l'man tzidko yagdil Torah v'yahadir yitkadal v'yitkadash shemei rabba v'madivrach yutei v'yamlich malchutei b'chaychon v'yomeichon v'chayidechol beit Yisrael b'galai b'zman karim v'yimeru amen. Yehishmer Amarach Leolam Leomel Maya Barach Vishtabach Vid Parchman Vid Nase Vitadavid Lev Dalal Shmen Kudasha Brichu Lelam Gorbachata Vishirata Tushbachata Benechamata Damiran Beamavi Amru Amen. Vani tefilati l'chadonai et ratzon Elohim barav chastecha aneni be'emed yishecha Vayiben so Aaron vayomer Moshe kumaran futoy v'chavianus misanecha mipanecha ki mitzion tetzei Torah v'adnai miYerushalayim baruch shanatan Torah l'Moshe b'kedushato. Gadlu Adonai iti Rama Shemo yachtav l'chad v'agulav v'agulav We're going to read from Parshat Yitro. Looking out in the room, has anyone been assigned to read this afternoon? All right. Let's see how this goes. Steve, you want to be a gabbai and helper? Sheva, you got a weekday sim shalom from the sanctuary? Todah. Okay, Parshat Yitro begins, if you're following from home in a different Siddur, open up to the book of Exodus, chapter 18, verse 1, in the Eitz Chaim Chumash, 432. Amen. Gail.
AJ.
נעמוד על היטיבת, בת. אברהם הקדח ראשון, ברוך נתן תורה למועץ ובקדושתו.
ואתם מגיעים אליכם, חיים לכם היום.
ברכו את אדוני המבורך. ברוך אדוני המבורך לעולם ועד. ברוך אתה אדוני אלוהינו מלך העולם, אשר בחר בנו מכל העמים ונתן לנו את תורתו. ברוך אתה אדוני נותן התורה.
אמן. וישמע יתרו כהן מדיין חותן משה אשר עשה אלוהים למשה לישראל עמו כי הוציא אדוני ישראל ממצרים. ויקח יתרו חותן משה את ציפור אשת משה אשר אחר שילוחיה ואת שני בניה אשר שם האחד גרשום כי אמר גר הייתי בארץ נוכריה ושם האחד אליעזר כי אלוהי אבי בעזרי ויצילני מחרב פרעה.
ברוך אתה אדוני אלוהינו מלך העולם אשר נתן לנו תורת אמת וחיי עולם נטע בתוכנו. ברוך אתה אדוני נותן התורה.
אמן.
ברכו את אדוני המבורך. ברוך אדוני המבורך לעולם ועד. ברוך אתה אדוני אלוהינו מלך העולם אשר בחר בנו מכל העמים ונתן לנו את תורתו. ברוך אתה אדוני נותן התורה.
אמן. ויבוא יתרו חותן משה בניו ואשתו אל משה אל המדבר אשר הוא חונה שם הר אלוהים. ויאמר אל משה אני חותנך יתרו בא אליך ואשתך ושני בניה עמה. ויצא משה לקראת חותנו וישתחו וישק לו וישאלו איש אל רעהו לשלום. ויבואו האוהלה ויספר משה לחותנו את כל אשר עשה אדוני לפרעה ולמצרים על עדות ישראל את כל התלאה אשר מצאתם בדרך ויצילם אדוני.
ברוך אתה אדוני אלוהינו מלך העולם אשר נתן לנו תורת אמת חיי עולם נטע בתוכנו. ברוך אתה אדוני נותן התורה.
Baruch Adonai HaBarak. Baruch Adonai Baruch Le'olam Va'ed. Baruch Atah Adonai Eloheinu Melech HaOlam Asher Bachar Banu Mikol Ha'amim V'natan Lanu Et Torto. Baruch Atah Adonai Noten HaTorah.
Amen. Vayichad Yitro al kol hatova asher asa Adonai liYisrael asher hitzilo b'yad Mitzrayim. Vayomer Yitro Baruch Adonai asher hitzil etchem b'yad Mitzrayim u'miyad Paro asher hitzil et ha'am mitachad yad Mitzrayim. Ata yadati ki gadol Adonai mikol Elohim ki badavar asher zadu alehem. ויקח יתרו חותן משה ולזבחים אלוהים ויבוא אהרון וכל זקני ישראל לאכול לחם עם חותן משה לפני אלוהים.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher natan lanu Torah emet v'chei olam natav b'chinu Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah.
Do Hamagbiya Bahagolelet. Cindy, will you rap? Please rise. Bring a chair. Asher Sam Moshe Livnei Bnei Yisrael Api Adonai B'yad Moshe Eitz Chaim Lamachazikim Ba'avedom Che'al Me'ushar Eitz Chaim Lamachazikim Ba'avedom Che'al Me'ushar Derachel Darchei Noam V'chol Netivotei Shalom Derachel Darchei Noam V'chol Netivotei Shalom Ay 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 anay 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 Steve We're going to pause and say El Malei Rachmim for your side. Steve is going to recite one for Lily and Debbie's father, who they are on Zoom. Steve is in here with us in person.
אל מלא רחמים שוכן במרומים המצא מנוחה נכונה תחת כנפי השכינה במעלות קדושים וטהורים כזוהר הרקיע מזהירים לנשמת אפרים בן ישראל ובא לדבורה שהלך לעולמו בגן עדן תהא מנוחתו אנא ברחמים אסתירהו בסתר כנפיך לעולמים וצרור בצרור החיים את נשמתו אדוני הוא נחלתו וינוח בשלום על משכבו ונאמר אמן.
And Lillian or Debbie, do you want to share a memory of your father that's coming to you right now? They can't hear? They're not hearing?
I have no idea.
Okay. Do you want to share a memory of your father-in-law, Steve?
So this is the 21st, 22nd year side of the passing of my father-in-law, Ephraim Freddie the Barber Gelberg, Lillian and Debbie's father. He was a character, very, very enthusiastic, had a huge amount of energy. When he died at age 77, I think he had the energy of a 25-year-old. He was a Holocaust survivor, a very proud member of the Jewish community, and his favorite, one of his favorite lines was that one should always sing and dance until the day you die, and then maybe even after that.
Oh, I can.
Good.
You said it beautifully, but now Deb can speak.
Debbie, do you want to share a memory?
Oh, sure. Thank you so much. I think I would like to say ditto to what Steve had to say. And I remember he was a great provider, but he also loved to party. My mom would put together these backyard parties and for our friends and neighbors, and he was the chief catalyst. He loved to have a good time. As Steve was saying, he loved to dance and sing and have a great time. And I also remember the beach trips he took us to. Remember, Lil? He took us to the beach, and I think that helped to, Lily and I still love the beach as a result. And I remember those beautiful times and just having fun. And so grateful to him for being a good father and giving us Jewish educations and also college educations. And he worked really hard and he just loved us. And that was really clear, and I'm just grateful and I miss him.
He's a Baruch. May his memory be a great blessing to all of you.
Thank you.
Anyone else who is in person or on Zoom has your site this week? Okay, we'll continue with the service. Page.
Larry has
Oh,
Larry on Zoom.
Oh, sorry, I didn't see you, Larry. Please, who are we saying this for?
Yes. Hello, everyone. This is for my father, Marvin Rosenstein.
Okay, what was his Hebrew name?
His Hebrew name was Moshe ben Natan Vibluma.
Moshe ben Natan in Vibluma.
Yes.
El Male Rachamim, Shochein Bamromim, Hamsei Menucha Nechona, Tachat Kanfei Ashchina, B'malot Kedoshim Utehorim Kezoar Haraki Amazirim, Led Nishmat Moshe ben Natan Ubluma Shalach Leolamo, Began Eden Tehei Menuchato, Anaha Bala Rachamim, Hastireu beseter knafecha liolamim. Utzror betzrachem et nishmato, Adonai hu nachalato. V'yanuach b'shalom al mishkavo, v'nomar amen. Larry, do you want to share a memory of your father?
Yes, thank you. This is his 6th yortzeit, and I miss him every day. But one memory that comes to mind is when I was admitted to law school, and I just happened to be down where his business was when I found out the news, and he was in the back. It was a salvage yard, so he was in the back, and I walked out and I told him the news, and I still remember him running to me and hugging me, and that's a memory that I'll never forget.
A very evocative memory. Yehi Zichro Baruch, may his memory be a blessing to you, Larry, and the whole family. Okay, we'll continue on page 221 in the Lev Shalem. Ya'alu Hashem Adonai, ki niskav shemo levado, hodot v'shamayim v'yarin keren li'amod, yalachu chasidav, lefnei Yisrael kravo, hallelujah, leDavid. Itchaim l'machazikim ba'betomchem, yoshar drachei drachei noam, v'chol nativoteh hashalom, hashivenu Adonai alecha v'nashuv, v'chadesh yameinu kekedem, yikadal v'yikadash shemei rabba, v'adivrach yuteh, v'yamlich malchuteh, v'chaychon v'yomecha, v'chaydecho beit Yisrael, v'agalav yizman kariv, yimru amen, yehi shmer b'morah, v'elanu yamaya, yibarach v'yishtabach, v'yitparchman v'yitnasei, V'tadar v'talev v'talash v'negudasha richu v'lam rego b'chata v'shirata tush b'chata v'nechamata Damiran be'alma v'yimeru amen. The Amidah for Mincha said in a silent whisper beginning 223 in the Lev Shalem. If you're still davening, please continue at your own pace. We begin the repetition 223. Please rise, remain standing through the Kedusha 225. Nai, Satai, Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu Eloheinu Abraham Elohei Yitzchak Elohei Yaakov El Agdol HaGibor V'Yano Ra'alayon Gomel Chasadim Tovim V'Konei Yaakov V'Zocher Chastei Avot Umevi Goel Livnei V'Nehen L'man Shmo Yaba Melech Ozer Mashiach Magen Baruch atah Adonai Magen Avraham Gibor Le'Lam Adonai Mechem Itim Atarav Lo Oshia Mashiv HaRuach Umerid Agash Mechakel Chaim V'Chesed Mechayem Itim Rachamim Rabim Samech Nofim Rafech Polim Atira Surim Mekayem Unatol Shnei Afar Michamocha Balgavrot Midom Melach Melech Meimitum Chayem Atzmiach Yeshua Beneman Atalach Hayom Meitim Baruch atah Adonai Mechayem Meitim. Nekadesh Shemcha B'Olam Kashen Shemat Yishim Bato B'Shmei Maron Kakdu V'Yad Miach V'Kara Zeh El Zeh V'Yamar Kadosh, 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 Adonai, Tzvad Melech Haaretz Kibadoli Matam Baruch Yomeru Baruch Adonai Mikamod Divrei Kodshecha Katuv Lemor Loch Adonai Le'Lam Lo Ha'etzion L'Dor V'Ador Ha'Liyah L'Dor V'Ador Nagi Golech L'Netzach L'Zayim Kinu Shelcha Nagish V'Shivcha Eloheinu Pinu L'Mush Le'Olam V'Ekiem Melech Kadosh V'Kadosh Ata Baruch atah Adonai Ha'el HaKadosh Ata Echad V'Shimcha Echad Umi Ke'amcha Yisrael Umi Ke'amcha Yisrael Goy Echad Ba'aretz Tiferet Gedula Ba'ateret Yeshua Yom Menucha Ukdusha Le'amcha Natata Yom Menucha Ukdusha Le'amcha Natata Avraham Yagel Yitzchak Yiranen Yaakov Ubanav Yanuchubo Yaakov Ubanav Yanuchubo Menuchat Ahava Unedava Menuchat Emet V'Yemuna Menuchat Shalom V'Shalva V'Hashked V'Betach Menuchat Shalom V'Shalva V'Hashked V'Betach Menuchat Shlema Shatar Utzabah Yakiv V'Necha V'Edu Ki Mincha Menuchatam Yamenuchaktam Yakdishu Et Shemecha Eloheinu V'Levoteinu Tzei V'Nuchatenu Kadeshenu V'Mitzvotecha V'Techachem V'Toratecha Savenu Mituvecha V'Samchenu V'Shuatecha V'Tarei Libeinu V'Cha V'Yemet V'Anchilenu Eloheinu V'Avar V'Tzon Shabbat Kodshecha V'Nuchu V'Yisrael Mekadeshei Shemecha Baruch atah Adonai Mekadesh HaShabbat V'Tzei Adonai Eloheinu V'Mcha Yisrael B'Tfilatam V'Shevet Avodel B'Betecha V'Yishay Yisrael Tfilatam V'Avat V'Ratzon Tfilatzon Tamid Avidah Yisrael Amecha V'Techazena Eineinu V'Shuchat Yom Berachamim Baruch atah Adonai Hamachazir Shechinato Letzion Modim Anachnu Atov kilo chalo racham mechem rachem kilo tamu chasadecha me'olam kivinu lach v'yal kulam yiparach v'tram shulchan al kiner tamid le'olam v'ed v'chol hachem yidu chasel v'elu et shimcha l'met el yeshuateinu v'ezrateinu sela baruch atah Adonai atov shulchan l'chana ela hodod shalom rav al Yisrael m'chatasim le'olam kitam melech adon l'chol ha'shalom v'tov beinecha Levarechem Chayesho b'chol eit v'chol sha'a b'shlomecha Baruch atah Adonai Hamvarech amo Yisrael b'shalom. Can someone remind me, is Tu B'Shvat tomorrow or Monday? It's Sunday night to Monday. Okay. Then we move to Tzidkacha, top of 2:30. Tzidkacha tzedek le'olam v'torcha v'tzidkacha Elohim arum asher sigdol Elohim yichamocha Tzidkacha karei el mishpatecha tohom rabba Adam u'behema toshia Adonai Yikadav Yikadash Merabah Yomai Dirakativ and Mechmak Teva Chayachon of Yomachon of Chedach Obesov Gav Bizman Karib Yimru Amen Yehesh Miram Barach Le'olam Le'al Maya Yibarach V'Yishtabach V'Yidpar Dram Yinaseh V'Tadav 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 Shana Kudusha Richu V'Lem B'Kor B'Chatav V'Shir Tatu Tav Nechmatad Damiran B'Yamav Yimru Amen Tegabel Tzotana V'Ton Dochoy Sol Kadav Honi V'Shmaya V'Yimru Amen Yehesh L'Ram Min Shemaya V'Chaim Alem B'Koy Yisrael V'Yimru Amen Oseh Shalom Rama, V'yaseh Shalom Aleinu, V'al Kol Yisrael, B'yimeru, Amen. Aleinu l'shabeach l'adonako, l'teikenu l'liotzer b'reishin.
Son Kilkenny, Hallelujah, Amen.
אנחנו קוראים ומשתחווים ומודים לפני מלך מלכי המלכים הקדוש ברוך הוא שהוא נטע שמיים וארץ למשה יקראו בשמיים. ותקן עולם מלכות שדי. כמלכות של חיים. ככתוב בתורתך על נעים לך לעולם ועד ונאמר והיה אדוני למלך על כל הארץ ביום ההוא יהיה אדוני אחד ושמו Kadisha Tome Warner's Kaddish, page 232. Yitgadal v'yitgadash shemei Rabbah v'alma divrach chirutei v'yamlich malchutei v'chai echon v'yom echon v'chayei dechol beit Yisrael v'agala v'zman
Amen. Amen.
Yitbarach
Yishtabach.
v'yitramam v'yitnasei Yithadar, Yithalev, Yithalal, Shemer Kudusha, Richu, Leila, Min Kol Birchata, V'Shirata, Tush Birchata, V'Nechamata, Miran Be'alma, V'Yimru, Amen. Yehei Shlama Rabba Min Shemaya, V'Chaim Aleinu, V'Al Kol Yisrael, V'Yimru, Amen. Oseh Shalom Ramav, V'Yaseh Shalom, Aleinu, V'Al Kol Yisrael, V'Yimru, Amen. Good Shabbos, everyone. We have some food for Sudash Lishit, so please feel free to go take some food. I guess we didn't really set this up with tables, so take food and take to your chair and start eating, and then at some point we'll introduce our speaker who will be presenting to us this afternoon. Did I announce that right, Tyson?
Fine, and then after we finish the speaker, we'll have Ari, and then there's another event happening. You can continue next door, so please don't leave. The door's open. Yeah, this is the food, and then later after that.
So enjoy, get some food. Sorry about the lack of tables. Which way is this? Yeah, not this way. Why don't we do this?
Hi, Lil.
Choice.
You mean down?
Yeah.
You don't ever go anymore? But
For some reason, it's
busy.
Yeah. Is that why you sat there?
Hi. Annette asked us.
And Zoomers, just hang on. We'll be starting up in about 5 minutes.
Yeah. Okay. Okay.
And if you're confused, we're serving 2 meals tonight. This is pre-dinner and after Havdalah's actual dinner. You get 2 dinners tonight at Temple Ham. 2 dinners for the price of none.
Yeah, rub it in, Rabbi.
Okay, Shabbat Shalom again, everyone. This room is a wonderful room for singing harmonies. It's unforgiving in terms of quiet chatter. So as we move from getting food to getting ready to learn, if you're still in line getting food, that's fine. Just please do it as quietly as possible so we can start the program. So in synagogues around the country, they're observing this weekend as Refugee Shabbat. An opportunity once again to reinforce that our values as a Jewish community are, of course, about caring for the Jew in need and the Jew who needs protection from the world, and also anyone else who is on the run, anyone else who does not claim home as obviously and easily as we do, anyone else for whom living as a refugee is their standard reality. That wonderful tagline that Hayas put out a few years ago, it used to be that we cared because they were Jews, now we care because we are Jews, meaning most of the refugees in the world right now are not Jewish refugees, but our obligation to them is because we are Jewish, not because they are. So Beth Ham has had a long and proud connection with Hayas. I myself have been connected to Hayas for nearly my entire life because my mother was a volunteer for them for many years. And many of us, if we have Ashkenazi, but not even only of Ashkenazi descent, many of us going back into our family tree have a grandparent or a great-grandparent, or perhaps even a great-great-grandparent who came to these shores and was helped directly or indirectly because of Hayas's vision. And we're honored that we're here tonight to have a meal, to study a little bit, and then to have meal number 2, because there's nothing more Jewish than serving the meal after the meal. We're honored this afternoon to be hearing from Raphael Marcus. I want to tell you a bit about who he is, but just do it for a minute because mostly I want us to hear from him. Raphael joined Hayas in 2018 as the Senior Vice President of its Programs Division in charge of international programs, U.S. programs, emergency response, and humanitarian partnership. Formerly, Raphael served as Director of International Operations for the German humanitarian organization called Humedica International, focusing on medical rapid response aid mechanisms and complex emergencies. Prior to that, he served as the organization's Chief Security Officer and Desk Officer for East Africa. Over the years, Raphael has led emergency humanitarian operations in disasters such as Typhoon Haiyan, Philippines, the Nepal earthquake, an Ebola outbreak in Liberia, the earthquake in Haiti, and in protracted crises such as the famine in the Horn of Africa, the civil unrest in the Central African Republic, and the Syrian refugee crisis. Raphael is an expert in humanitarian emergency response and has an MPH in Emergency and Disaster Management from Tel Aviv University. Raphael served for 3 years in Sahel and the IDF as a staff sergeant and medical team leader in Special Forces, in a Special Forces reconnaissance unit. He was born in Bern, Switzerland, the capital, where his father served as the chief rabbi, and at the age of age 14, made Aliyah along with his family. We are so honored, Raphael, to have you in our midst and to be speaking to us today. Baruch haba.
Thank you so much. Can you all hear me? Yes? Okay, good. I'm a soft-spoken person, so I always have to check. And you can hear me on Zoom too? Perfect. Thank you, Larry, for the sign. So, hi everyone. It's not yet Shavuot Tov, but almost. We're almost there. So it's still Shabbat Shalom. Thank you so much for having us here. We have a delegation of highest people here for people, but it's their territory. They're all LA based. I'm the only one who is coming from outside, since I live in Silver Spring, Maryland, where our headquarters is. And so thank you again for having me here on this 5th Refugee Shabbat, Shabbat where really communities across the world celebrate, commemorate. It's a question we will try to solve today. Refugee Shabbat, and it is taking place really across the world. We have Refugee Shabbat celebrations 5 continents. I think more than 300 communities that really signed up for Refugee Shabbat, and so really a growing initiative and trend that we really want to lift up. And you know, I'll be very honest. I thought about what to say yesterday on the plane, but I just read the parasha once, and it was very obvious. The parasha just really screams the story of the refugee and of the Jewish people. And you know, the most really striking part, and I hope, I'm not your rabbi, but I hope you were in shul today in the morning, is really Shirat Hayam, right? The song of the sea, or the song of gratitude. And it's a beautiful song, right? Like this really beautiful song of gratitude. And this song really of having just crossed the Red Sea and having just left behind what made them feel unsafe, and having this barrier now finally between them and what has made them feel unsafe. And so it is an obvious connection between the parasha, between Parasha Beshalach, and the story of a refugee, and why I'm here and why I'm going to talk to you. But it's also really, it's really only one part, right? It is, we are reading how they are crossing the Red Sea and celebrating that. But what I'd like us to do today in the next 15 minutes is really to think about the whole continuum of a refugee journey, which starts with deciding to leave, being on the journey, and eventually arriving at a place they feel home and they feel safe. But I would say that something which is very special about the Jewish people who have really experienced it, but not only Jewish, refugees in general, is that the continuum continues. It doesn't end with integration, because what we see so often is that refugees themselves then become people who help refugees, who stand up for refugees, and who speak out for refugees. And that is really kind of the fourth step, you can say, from leaving, from going through the journey, from integrating in a new place, and then eventually also being able to stand up and advocate and support refugees. And that is the wonderful story of the refugees. And you know, again, we see it all around. Last week I had a meeting with the Deputy Assistant Administrator of the State Department Bureau for Population, Refugee and Migration. It's a crazy title. I was telling her that I'm going to LA. I was very excited because it's my first time in LA, actually. And I told her she was going to LA, and she said, oh, wonderful. One of her best experiences was in LA just a year and a half ago, when she came to visit the Vietnamese community when they were working to support the Afghans fleeing Kabul. And that really touched her heart. And so we really see refugees all around the world that once they have settled, once they have found a home, they remember the journey that they went through, right? Zachor, and really stand up for other refugees. And I mentioned before, you know, is it commemoration or is it celebration? So I would say, you know, if Refugee Shabbat would be on Shabbat Zachor, where you have to remember, it would be maybe more commemorating. On Passover, we should definitely all also remember, but it's Beshalach, it's really Shirat Hayam, it's the song of gratitude. So I think we are celebrating Refugee Shabbat, and what I would really like us to do is celebrate you as a community, and all the other communities here in the US and around the world that are standing up and supporting refugees, not only by advocating and speaking up, but by actually supporting refugees, right? Like this community here, which was one of the first communities that formed a welcome circle, which by now has really grown. We have over 80 welcome circles in the US. We have welcome circles in Europe even, in all kinds of different countries, in Ireland, in Belgium, in Italy. And so it is really this, you know, to see refugees like what she saw with the Vietnamese is really amazing. And it's not only that. Our rabbi just said, right? We used to help refugees because they were Jewish. Now we help refugees because we are Jewish, right? This is the same continuum. And one of the things that has actually contributed to that, because Hayes started really to help refugees only in the late 1990s, was the state of Israel, right? So once there was a home state, once there was a state where Jews could find safety, in addition to the US, there weren't so many Jewish refugees left, right? It was really during the 1990s, there was another wave of Jews leaving the former USSR. And after that, Hayes really found like, now we can do that continuum, right? We don't have to help ourselves anymore. We can now finally, as former refugees, as the people who have experienced that history, also reach out and help other refugees. And so the state of Israel, which really gives this home state, right, has definitely also contributed to that, together with the strong Jewish community in the US, which had already found a home over many decades since Hayes has been working. And Hayes has been really working for, we say, over 130 years. The exact date is currently under question. We say more than 130 years. Hayes is the oldest refugee agency in the world, and one of the most important one. We are one of the 5 biggest partners of the United Nations High Commissioner for Refugees. And we work currently in more than 20 countries. And our programs are, we always talk about our core programmatic areas, which are prevention and response to gender-based violence, mental health and psychosocial support, legal protection, and economic inclusion and integration. And I will also try to use that continuum of the next 10 minutes, which I still have left, to also describe a bit more about these programs. One more thing that I did want to mention is it's very interesting if you look at some of the drafting of the really most important documents and conventions, like the Convention Against Genocide or the Geneva Conventions or the drafting of the 1951 Refugee Convention, as well as the Declaration for Human Rights, Jewish people were very, very instrumental in drafting these, right? Raphael Lemkin, who was very much involved in the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, as well as René Cassin. So these are all people who had experienced it by themselves, often in Europe, and that had brought them really also to really stand up and be part of that. And there's actually a very interesting article that also tries to show how the Jewish values feeded into that, because actually all those 4 that I just mentioned were religious Jewish people. And so that's also very interesting. So let's start really to think. The journey starts. People need to move. Why do they move? And I think there are 2 really important things to mention here. One is because it's fairly bad where they are, right? We always say people only leave home if home is the mouth of a shark, right? And we always have to remember that. And we see that. We see that in Venezuela right now. As one of the rare non-Americans at Hayes, I am able to travel to Venezuela, and I was there, and it is very bad. And, you know, sometimes people still have to ask, what's the reason? I don't have to ask what's the reason. If I see 6 million people leaving one country, 1/4 of the population of Venezuela, it must be fairly bad. And we see that in Ukraine right now. And we see that in all the other places where Hayes has been working. So that's one factor, obviously, the obvious factor. People leave because it's bad. But the other reason is because they have the courage to do so. They have the courage to do so, and they have the faith to do so. And it's very interesting if you look at last week's parasha, and I only know that because it's my parashat bar mitzvah, parashat Bo, at the end, when you read the Haftarah, there's a sentence, Al tir'a Yaakov, don't be afraid, Yaakov. So it really ends with this, don't be afraid. And then the next week, we read how they really take on that really difficult journey of crossing the Red Sea, obviously with a lot of help by God, who somehow made that miracle. But still, you need a lot of courage to do so. And I will not lie if I say that the resilience that I've seen in refugees all over the world is one of the most inspiring things that I have and will ever experience. And just having crossed this barrier, it's really hard to imagine. We look at the barriers that people are crossing nowadays, right? I don't know if many of you know the Darien Gap, right? One of the most treacherous journeys that people can actually take, weeks within a rainforest between Colombia and Panama. And as difficult and dangerous it is, we have, on average, over the last couple of months, 1,000 to 2,000 people each day arriving on the Panamanian side, where we have staff members welcoming them, providing them services, and providing them information for onward journey. Or even more, if you look at really analogy of what we are reading, Red Sea, let's think about the Mediterranean. Might not be as much in the news here in the US, but it should, because 20,000 people have lost their lives in the Mediterranean over the last 7 years. It's unbelievable. And it is still happening. The world is letting it happen. 20,000 people drowned in the Mediterranean over the last 7 years. And so it is really the courage you need to set foot, to go up and cross this initial barrier, right? I mean, where are the children of Israel now? They're still in Sinai. They're not in Israel yet. They just crossed the Red Sea. So, and once they cross the Darien, where are they? They're in Panama. They probably won't stay in Panama. They probably want to go up to the US. So they still have quite a long journey. And even once you've crossed the Mediterranean, you will probably find yourself in detention or in, I never call it a camp, it's a detention facility in Greece, which some people call a camp. And the journey is still fairly long. So a lot of courage and a lot of faith. And the faith piece is interesting because what happens after the song, after Moses and the children of Israel sing the song of gratitude, what happens after that? It says, "Ve'az Miriam hanevia achot Aaron lakha et hatupim." Miriam, the prophet, the sister of Aaron, took the drums, and together with the women, they sang. Why did they have drums? They just crossed the Red Sea. Why did they carry drums with them? And there's an interesting mechilta by Rabbi Ishmael, and he says exactly that. He says, well, they had faith. They knew that they are going to make it. They knew that they're going to be able to cross the Red Sea, so they already had the drums with them. And I found that a very nice way of really showing that they had faith in God. And the faith in God is a very important part for Hayas, because what we really try to do in all our interventions is to be very faith sensitive and take into account the spiritual needs of the refugees, because the spiritual part is a big part of the resilience and faith that refugees show. Obviously, it differs from place to place, from culture to culture, but it is a strong part of the resilience, and it would be wrong for us to not take that into account when we try to help the people. And it can be quite traumatic to cross such a barrier, such as the Darien, but also the Red Sea. If you really look at the words of the song, it's not all gloomy. It's a lot of, and he crushed Pharaoh into the sea, and he drowned the horses, and there's some strong language, and I think it indicates also to us that there's a lot of trauma involved when crossing such a barrier. And then the other question, why do women have to have a separate song? We just sang all together, and then Miriam takes it and they say, well, That's my interpretation, but it is something that I definitely know from my work at Hayes. Well, women and children are at exacerbated risk whenever they are displaced and whenever they are on the move. And that is something which this kind of another thing which Hayes has definitely put at the forefront of our approach is to really look at the violence that women and girls have to endure and at the exacerbated needs that women and girls have. And this is something we have been very much including in our response in Ukraine, for example, where a lot of our work is with women-led organizations. And also because Ukraine had that very strong characteristics of all the men staying in the country because they were not allowed to leave. They're still not allowed to leave. And really most of the refugees being women and girls in a place which already before the escalation of the war had quite a lot of trafficking activities. And so it was clear from the beginning that prevention and response to gender-based violence would be a very big feature of our response. And I think the fact that the women sing another song of gratitude might indicate to the fact that for women and girls, it can be, or it will always probably, until we don't solve some very basic principles, be under additional risk. So they just crossed the continuum. We continue. It continues, right? They are still not in Israel. There's the journey itself. And this journey is long. On average, refugees are displaced for 15 years until they reach a place of safety that they call home. Hayes knows that because we've been working in Chad for over 20 years in 13 refugee camps. These are the same refugees that crossed into Chad 21 years ago. They are still in those camps. And so while the average time went down from 17 to 15 years, obviously nothing to be very proud of, it's still a very long time. And we see that also in what we read, right? It will still take another 40 years for the children of Israel to eventually come and cross into Israel. And these 40 years are not easy. Even in today's Parsha, we already read about how they start complaining, right? They say, how come did you take us out of Egypt? We have nothing to drink. We have nothing to eat. Because it is tough. Being in a refugee camp is being completely dependent on somebody else, often without really freedom of movement. And even if, most of the refugees are not in camps. Actually, there's a myth that most refugees are in camps. Actually, only 20% that find themselves in camps. But I think everyone here knows about the difficulties and the risks of people that are trying to cross over continents, like in Latin America, where they're trying to cross to the US. So this journey is still a very, very long journey. And I think this is also something which the Bible and our history really shows us, that even once you have crossed this barrier and having been leaving beside whatever made you feel unsafe, the journey is not over yet. They still need miracles, right? They still need Moses to hit on the stone so water comes out, and the manna that comes from the sky. And that is really the story of the refugees. They still need the miracles. Now, I will say that even once they found a home, the journey still isn't over. Integration is not an easy thing. And that, I think, is where your community and many, many, many other communities in the US are really doing such an amazing and important job. Integrating into a new society, that can be really, really tough. I must say, in the US, it's pretty tough. I moved to the US 4 years ago, and it took me half a year to understand what the credit score even is and why I should need it and why it should be at a certain point. and then to build it up. And that's me. I came with a visa, I came with work, I had friends here. So Kal Vachoma, how it is a really difficult thing to do. And so I really want to thank you, this community, and all the other communities around the world that work daily, really, on helping to integrate refugees in a country, which it doesn't matter really into which country refugees will come, as long as it is different, it is always hard to integrate. And it is a beautiful way to integrate is when you really have a community that stands behind them. So here we are, we went through that whole journey. Highest really works with refugees along this journey. So we work in countries of origin where things happen. We have almost 200 staff in Venezuela right now, for example. We work during the journey, as I just said. We have operations in Greece, we have operations in Colombia, in Panama, in Costa Rica, Mexico, across the journey that many refugees take. And obviously we also work, as you all know, where refugees eventually end up and try to integrate into society. And all this work would not be as good and maybe even not as possible without the broad support that we receive, and predominantly that we receive from you, the Jewish people and the Jewish communities across the world. It is important to work always on both sides. We do programming, but we really also need the advocacy. I was speaking yesterday at another temple, and somebody asked me, well, what is Highest doing to stop whatever is making those refugees to move, right? I told them, well, there are no humanitarian solutions to humanitarian problems, and we can only do our work, but the solution needs to be a political solution, right? We can't change the government in Venezuela, we cannot stop the war in Ukraine, and we can definitely not stop famine from happening in East Africa. But we can help, and we can advocate. We can advocate for a change in those countries. You can advocate for the US and other bigger powers to take an active stance. And we can advocate also for them to take into account whatever political decisions they take, that there will be refugee movements. Something which we felt was missing actually when Kabul fell. It was a decision by the US government to do it, but we never felt that they really took into account or thought through what that would mean. And so we ended up with really hastily having to evacuate thousands of Afghans. And eventually it was not the government, it was you, the people, who really helped us being able to absorb and integrate all the refugees from Afghanistan and now from Ukraine. So advocacy is really important. We have to talk, we have to speak up. And even if we feel that the current administration might be on our side, it might not be their main priority. And most important, we have to be louder than them. But there are other ways to help. I would really urge you all to look at our website, join our welcome campaign, where you will also receive guidance on how to reach out to your congressmen, to the senators. There's the JPAC event in Sacramento in another month, March 10, 11, 12, I think. May. Where you would be able to lobby lawmakers and others. And please also sign on the letter for the Senator Bill 85, a really important bill. When talking about integration, really important, because what this bill would do is really provide refugees with additional 3 months of support to integrate. Right now, it's really only 3 months, and then refugees are for themselves. And this bill would be unique in that it would really prolong that by another 3 months, something that we would all really welcome. Obviously, we always like to receive donations too. We have operational costs, which are, just the security costs in Ukraine, when I look at them, it makes me, I lose nights over that. The well-being of our staff, things which donors don't really always cover. But more important than donating to Highest here in Los Angeles is donating to local organizations, local grassroots organizations that are really embedded in the community. And right now, really, we are trying with JFCS of Long Beach to really revamp our work with them to make sure that Highest can once again, after 5 years, resettle in Los Angeles. So I would really also ask you to if you are able to donate to JFCS Long Beach. I will end here. Thank you very, very much for having us, for listening. But most important, just thank you for your amazing work and engagement. It makes all the difference for the people you are receiving and helping to integrate into this wonderful country. Thank you.
Shabbat is pretty much over, but I know that some of us are wishing that this were a summer Shabbat, that we're not ending till 9, so we would have more time to hear from Raphael and learn from him. Let's pause to see if we have just a few questions. I know the questions will continue. Shh, just keep it quiet in the room. It's hard in the room. If we have a couple of questions for Raphael based on what he said, let's field one or two, and then we'll go on with Mari Ben Havdalah. AJ?
Okay, the question the question was how large Highest is and what our annual budget is. So Highest, I always like to start with the impact. That's the most important thing. So our impact right now, we impact about 1.2 million people each year. That's the amount of people that we manage to support and serve over a year. The annual budget right now is around $200 million. We have 1,700 staff across more than 130 offices in about 23 countries.
Question in the back there.
For education for refugees once they arrive here. So there are various programs that we are running out. I mean, first and foremost, one of the more important educational resources that we provide to new arrived refugees is financial literacy and digital literacy. And that has shown itself mainly under COVID. Financial literacy and digital literacy. Right, because people not necessarily have the digital skills, they definitely don't know the financial systems. And so that's a very big part of what we provide. We obviously try to bring the kids to school as soon as possible. Often refugee kids who have arrived here have not gone to school for a long time. And so it's important to also really put that at the forefront. There's also, for resettled refugees, there's a lot of education happening before they are resettled. We call that culture orientation. That is courses that Highest, for example, gives in Israel to refugees that are resettled from Israel to the US or to Canada and to and Australia. And those culture orientation sessions are also are given all around the world by resettlement agencies. So these are kind of the core areas of education that are provided.
One more question?
Yes, I'm curious. There are many organizations out there. Do you work in cooperation and in competition? How does that work with all the other organizations that are also trying to help?
That's a very, very good question. So yes, there is something which in our jargon we call it the humanitarian architecture. And so there's actually quite a solid governance system that is mainly built on United Nations organizations, but also NGOs are involved in that governance system, which really coordinate together and work together across the world in various settings. So there is a system. I won't say it works flawlessly, and it depends on what crises. It goes down from global level to regional to up to the municipal level. But there is a system. HIAS is very much part of it. We have people in various task forces of this architecture or in emergency groups, and we also are very strong in the thought leadership of that. So the 4 core programmatic areas that I mentioned are programmatic areas where we not only serve refugees, but where we also innovate, we educate, we provide policy briefs, and we really try to come every time up with new solutions that take into account best practices and lessons learned from previous crises.
I want to thank you, Rafael, for your leadership, for your work, for your illumination today. And really for dedicating so much of your life to helping people who are so in need, inspired by your own commitment to Torah and to the Kadosh Baruch Hu. Thank you, Rafael. We're going to do Birkat Hamazon, and then we'll do Mariv. In the Sidur, Birkat Hamazon is page 87. Norm, did you have bread? Yeah, so you want to lead Birkat Hamazon? Okay. You can come on up here. 87 in the Sidur.
Thank you. Shir Hamalus Beshuv Adonai Es Shivas Tzion Hayinu Kechomim Az Yamal Es Chokinu Ushonenu Rena Az Yom Ruva Goyim Higdil Adonai Lasos Imela Higdil Adonai Lasos Imanu Hayinu Smechim Shuva Adonai El Shivisenu Ka'afigim Ba'negev Hazorim Bedim Berina Yiktoru Holoch Yelech Uvacho No Same Meshech Hazara Bo Yavo Berina No Say Alon Mosov Chavei Rein Nevarech Yehi Shemadim Varach Min Taviad Olam Birshus Chavei Rai Nevarech Eloheinu Shachal Mishalom Baruch Eloheinu Shachal Mishalom Tochainu Baruch Hu Baruch Shemo Baruch Atah Adonai Eloheinu Melech Haolam Hazon es ha'olam kolo b'tuva b'chein b'chesed u'vrachamim Hu nosei lechem l'chol basor ki li'olam chasto u'v'tuvo ha'gadol Tamid lo chaser lanu v'yal yachsar lanu mazon le'olam v'ed ba'avur shemo ha'gadol Kuelzon farnes lako, umetiv lako, umechin nozon, lechol briosav asher asher bara, baruch atah Adonai, hazan es hakol, nodeh lecha. Gakasu v'yachalta v'savato v'rachta es Adonai Elohecha ha'aretz hatava asher nasan lach baruch atah Adonai ha'aretz v'yohamazon Uvnei Yerushalayim HaKadosh B'mhira b'yameinu Baruch atah Adonai Bonei v'rachamav Yerushalayim Amen Baruch atah Mikol tov leolam al yechasreinu. Harachaman yimochalinu leolam va'ed. Harachaman hu yisbrach b'shamayim uva'aretz. Harachaman hu yishtabach ledor dorim. V'yispar banu lado letzach letzachim. V'yisadar banu lado le'olamim. Harachaman yifarnaseinu b'chavod. Harachaman yishmar olim al tzavarenu. V'olichenu kamu yislartzenu. Harachaman yishlach lenu bracham b'bayis hazeh. V'al shulchan zeh shachalnu alav. Harachaman hu yishlach lenu es Eliyahu hanavi. Zachur latov. V'vaser lanu besoros tovos. Yeshuos v'nechamos. Harachaman hu yashkin shalom beinenu. Harachaman Yavrech Samsubin Khan, O son of Yeskala Sherlanu, Commotion is Borcha, Vasina Berham Yitzhak Yaakov, Sariv Korachel Leah, Bakol Mikol Kol, Kain Yavarecho Sanu Kolanu Yachad, Bivracha Shalema Venomar Amen, Bamaram Yelamdu, Alehem Vialenu. Zehus Shetei Limishmeres Shalom V'nisar Rachameis Adonai Utzta Kamel Heishenu V'nim Tachein V'seichel Tov B'yeinei Elohim V'yadam Harachaman Yanchinu Yom Shekolo Shabbos Nuchal L'chayei Olamim Harachaman Yivreches Horatz Hazus V'yishmereha Harachaman Yivreches Midinas Yisrael Yishmarim Harachaman Yivreches Achenu B'nei Yisrael Hansunim B'tzorov Yotzim Mafela L'ora Harachaman Yutenachava Bein B'nei Yishmael Uvein B'nei Yitzchak Harachaman Yizakinu Limus HaMashiach Uchaye Holam Haba Migdol Yeshuos Malko V'yosei Chesed Limshicho L'David u'Lezaro ad olam Oseh Shalom b'Ramav U'ya'aseh Shalom Aleinu v'al kol Yisrael Ve'yimeru Amen Yiras Adonai Kadoshav Ki Master L'Ureav Kivim Rashiv Ra'evu V'Rashadin Ras Ruchol Tov Hodu Adonai Ki Tov Ki L'Olam Chasdo Poseach es Yodecha U'masbiel L'chol Chai Rotzon Baruch HaGever Asher Yiftach B'Adonai V'Adonai Mivtacho Nar Ho'yisi Gam Zokanti V'Lorisi Tzadik Nezav Zar Mevakesh Lachem Adonai Oz Lamo Yitain Adonai Yivarech Esamo V'Shalom.
Kaddish Rabbanan, after our study, can be found on page 38 in the Lev Shalem. Yitkadal v'yikadash shemei Rabbah v'yamad divrach yirutei v'yamlich malchutei b'chayechon u'v'yamechon u'chayei d'chol beit Yisrael b'agala v'zman kari v'imru amen Yehei shemei Rabbah mevorach le'olam le'omei maya Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitromam v'yitnasei V'yithadar v'yithalev v'yithalal shmei kudusha brichu leila min kol berchata v'shirata tushbechata v'nechamata damiran be'alma v'imru amen al Yisrael v'al Rabbanan v'al Tamidehon v'al kol Tamidehon v'al kol man da'askin be'oraita diviatra hadein v'di b'chol atar v'atar Yehei lahon ulchon shlama rabba China v'chista v'rachamin v'chayin arichin umzona revicha u'forkana min kodam avohon di v'shmaya v'imru amen. Yehei shlama rabba min shemaya v'chayim tovim aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'imru amen. Oseh shalom romav u'brachamav yaseh shalom aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'imru amen. We'll rise for Mari, page 264. 264. Be'urachum yechaper avon v'lo yashid v'hirbala shiva povleo kol chamato Adonai Oshem melech ya'anenu v'yom korenu. Baruchu et Adonai Hamvorach. Baruch Adonai Hamvorach Leolam Va'ed. Baruch Atah B'chol Asher Bid Barob Mamri Bavim Chachma Potech Shavim Bid Funam Mishantim Bach. El Chai V'Kayam Tamidim Lo Chaleinu Leolam Va'ed. Baruch Atah Adonai Hamari Varavim Havadolam Midus Olcha. Ki Yem Chayin Av Yorachem Mena Behem Nege Yomam V'Layla V'Avat Chal Tasir Mimenu Leolamim Baruch Atah Adonai Ohev Amo Yisrael. Shema Yisrael Adonai Eloheinu Adonai Echad. Vayomer Adonai Moshe Le'Daber El Bnei Yisrael. Ani Adonai L'Chasher Tzeitichem. Adonai Elohechem Emeh V'Emunah Kazeh V'Kayam Aleinu. Et Rodfehem V'Yetzonehem B'Tamotim Aver. Umalchuto ratzon kiblo elehem Moshe b'nei Sulachanu shira b'simcha rabba v'yamru chulam mi chamocha b'alim Adonai mi kamocha nadar b'kodesh norati lo dosefele malchutecha ra'u banecha bokeya yam lifnei Moshe ze elianu v'yamru Adonai emloch leolam but b'nemar kifad Adonai et Yaakov ugalo miyad chazak mimenu baruch ata Adonai gal Yisrael. Ushmor Tzeiteinu Voinu L'chaim L'shalom Yataviyad Olam Baruch Ata Adonai Shomer Amo Yisrael Baruch Adonai Olam V'Eimim. Vayar Kol Am V'Yiplu B'Nehem V'Yamru Adonai Elohim Adonai Elohim V'Yaman L'Kol Arifim L'Chugin Eichash V'Chad Yichas T'Chad V'Yalei V'Asher. Ki malchut shelcha hi uliom yatim loch v'chavod ki elan hamelach ela ata baruch ata Adonai hamelach b'chvodot hamirim loch aleinu le'olam v'ed v'yal kol maasav yikadav yikadash shemer rabba v'yamad yivrach yutiv v'milch makutei v'chayachon v'yamachon uchay dechol beit Yisrael b'galav v'zman kariv v'yamru amen yehei shemer rabba m'vorach le'olam amen v'yaybarach v'yishtabach v'yidparchman v'yidnasei v'yitadar v'yitalev v'yitalash v'nekudushah richu L'yelam yinkol berachata v'shirata v'shirata v'nechamata Damiran be'alma v'yamaru amen. The Amidah is said quietly in a silent whisper beginning page 270. Chatzi Kaddish 279. Yitkadav Yikadash Shemer Abba. Imadi Rachute Vamlich Makote Vachayachon of Yamachon of Chedachol Beisu Bagalav Isman Karivim Ruamein Yehei Shemer Bamborach Leolam Mayai Barach Vishtabach Vid Parchuman Bidase Vitadav Vitalav Vitalash Finikurisha Brichu Leela Min Kobir Chatav Shiratat Shutav Nechmata Damiran Bealma Bim Ruamein. We are seated middle of 279. Vihino Manonai Eloheinu Aleinu Maseh Dena Konana Aleinu Maseh Yadeinu Konanehu Yoshe Besit Elyon Betzel Shaddai Lana Namar Lana Machsunatim. Ipomitidcha Elef Urva Minecha Elachala Yigash Rak Benecha Tabit Bishil Lamat Rishim Tiria Ketarnai Maxi Elyon Samtonecha Lotun Elera Menecha Gocha. Yikra Eni Vene Huimo Nochi Vetsar Achal Tsev Yachab De Orachim Masbiye Rishuati Orachami Masbiyehu Biareu Bishu Ati. Back to 216, second paragraph. Viata Kadosh Yoshev Tila Yisrael Karze Alzev Yamar Kadosh 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 Adonai Tzmo Haaretz Kabodo. Vati Seini Ruach Veshma Charai Kol Rash Gadol Baruch Adonai Mimkomo. Adonai Imloch Leolam Boed. Adonai Tzvadei Manam Yizkal Leno Adonai Tzvadei Shadei Mitachbar Adonai Shem Elach Yaneinu V'Yom Koreinu. V'yivtechu v'chayidei shemechi kilo azavta dar shechar na'adnai chapetz l'mantzit ko yagdil Torah v'ya'adir yitkadav yikadash shemer rabba v'madi rachotei v'amlich mavotei b'chayachon v'yamechon v'chaydecho beisu abagalav izman kariv v'yimru amen yehei shemer b'amorach le'olam v'yamai barach v'ishtabach v'yitparchuman v'yitnasei v'yitadar v'yitalav v'yitalav shvenu kudosh abrichu le'lam yekol b'chatav v'shiratat v'yitlav v'nechmata damiran be'alma v'yimru amen tekabel tzotana b'otan dochoy sol gadam mohni v'shmaya v'yimru amen yehei shlam alamin shemaya b'chayim alin b'koy shel v'yimru amen. Oseh shalom rama v'yaseh shalom aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'yimeru amen. We rise for Aleinu 281. Aleinu l'shabeach ladon hakol ateiku yoseh bereshit v'chol ha'im v'chol tzvishim. Hu Eloheinu Eloheinu dehemet malkeinu epezul v'akadu b'torah Alken akav l'chadon Eloheinu v'mahir. Kakatu b'torah tachanayim loch leolam v'hed v'nemar b'haya Adonai lemelech al kol haaretz bayom ha'u yeh Adonai echad u'shemo echad. Kaddish Atom Mourners Kaddish 282. Yitgadal v'yitgadash shemer Rabba v'yalma divrach hirutei v'yamlich malchutei v'chay echon v'yom echon v'chayei dechol beit Yisrael v'agala v'zman kari v'imru amen yehei shemer Rabba mevorach leolam le'omei almaya yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitromam v'yitnaseh v'yithadar v'yitaleh v'yithalal shemer kudusha brichu Le'ela min kol birchata v'shirata tushbechata v'nechamata damiran be'alma v'imru amen. Yehei shlama rabba min shemaya v'chayim aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'imru amen. Oseh shalom ramav v'yaseh shalom aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'imru amen. We'll gather for Havdalah. If there are people already in the next room? We should bring them in? Let's all do Havdalah together. So if you're comfortable, come close, kind of make a circle. We welcome members of our community, wonderful, treasured guests who are with us today. My dear friend Attila Kaveci was here from the Pacifica Institute. So nice to have you and members of your community. Guys, come on in. Shh. Before we do Abdallah, I also want to give a shout out to Tyson Roberts, our Vice President of Olam Chesed Yibaneh. Really, it's because of his efforts and his vision. We have a whole vice presidency and department in this institution committed towards building up our world with chesed, with acts of loving kindness and righteousness. And Tyson, you and your team who put together this event and so many events throughout the year are step-by-step raising the consciousness of this entire community. And we're really grateful to you for your efforts and your contributions. Yay, yay, Tyson. Yeshuati Eftach Velo Ki Aziv Ezimrat Yad Adonai Vayili Lishua Ushaftem Mayim Bisason Mimaynei Yeshua Ladonai Yeshua Alamcha Birchatecha Sela Adonai Tzvaot Imanu Miskav Lanu Elohei Yaakov Sela Adonai Tzvaot Ashrei Adam B'Tei Bach Adonai Yoshia Hamelech Yaneinu B'Yom Koreinu La Yehudim Hayta Ora V'Simcha V'Sason V'Yikar Kein Tiyeh Lanu Kos Yeshuot Esa U'V'Shem Adonai Ekra Ainanai 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 Baruch atah Adonai Mechalam Borei Pri Hagafen Baruch atah Adonai Mechalam Borei Minei Besamim. Passing around sweet spices to hopefully push us towards a week of sweetness and joy. So when they come to you, you can take a sniff. Baruch atah Adonai Mechalam Borei Miorei Ha'esh. If you're not familiar with this ritual, we look at our fingernails in the light, both so that we're using the light for some purpose and also just to recognize some detail about our body that we often don't think about but is worthy of our investigation, because all of us is worthy of that. Baruch atah Adonai Mechalam Avdil ben Kodesh Chomen L'choshech ben Yisrael Mimin Yom HaShvi L'Sheish Yemei HaMaseh Baruch atah Adonai HaMavdil ben Kodesh L'cho HaMavdil ben Kodesh L'cho Chatoteinu Yimcho Zareinu V'chaspeinu Yarbe Yarbe Kacho V'kach Kochavim Balai Zareinu V'chaspeinu Yarbe Yarbe Kacho V'kach Kochavim Balayla Eliyahu Hanavi Eliyahu Hatishbi Eliyahu Hanavi Eliyahu Hagi Eliyahu Hanavi Eliyahu Hatishbi Eliyahu Hanavi Eliyahu Oy b'meira yavo eleinu im Mashiach ben David b'meira yavo eleinu im Mashiach ben David. Shavua Tov, a good week. Let's give our attention to Tyson, who's going to describe the next aspects of this evening's program.
Thank you so much, Rabbi. Thank you, everyone, for coming. So we just transitioned from Shabbat into the week. We're also going to transition from this room into the next room. because all of these refugees have had to transition from their home country to finding refuge somewhere else. We're going to start off with, we had some chefs make some Afghan food. The Betham community's been sponsoring a family from Afghanistan for almost a year now, a refugee family from Afghanistan. Interesting moment happened this week or in the last couple of weeks. The 8-year-old, 9-year-old son just had his bris. So in a lot of Muslim cultures, they don't do it at 8 days, they do it at something like 8 years. If you want to hear more, not the bloody details, but about that process, Rachel Green has been transporting them back and forth from Canoga Park to Culver City, where it's surprisingly hard to find someone that's going to do a bris when it's not a baby. So the Betham community helped pay for that. It was $2,000 because it's more difficult, I guess, when you're older. I wouldn't know. And we've also spent about $20,000 supporting the family. They're now paying for their own rent and basically, for the most part, independent. Yeah, so it's been very exciting. Yeah, thank you. So today, after we go over there, so we have some Afghan food in honor of the Afghan family we've been sponsoring. We have a composer, musician, singer who's going to be performing from Cuba, a refugee from Cuba. So stay for that. He'll also talk a little bit about his story. We have an artist, Liliana Romero, here from Venezuela. She came from Venezuela as an asylum seeker about 7 years ago and now has a green card and is settled in and is waiting for her daughter to arrive. Very exciting. So she'll also share some words with us. You can look at her art. And then my wife, Naomi, has some art from a Zambian refugee that lives in South Africa now. So you can go walk around, look at the art. There's some posters with some information. The art's for sale, all the art's for sale. So if you want to buy it, some of the proceeds will go to Hayas and Tia. And Clue. I should recognize Guillermo Torres here from Clue, our longtime partners. And is anyone here from Ahavat Torah by any chance? Okay, welcome to Ahavat Torah. They're co-sponsoring. And anyone from Temple Isaiah by any chance? No? Okay, well, they put out the word. I guess it didn't work out. Okay, so thank you so much. We're going to bring up the food in just a little bit. There's some leftovers from here, but we're going to bring the Afghan food in a little bit. So hang out for a while and enjoy. Zoom people, we did not have planned for you to be zoomed in for the evening, but if you want to run over here, we're going to be here for an hour or so.
Tyson, what's the second organ? You mentioned